are you going?
It's not good. It doesn't look good.
What do you mean it doesn't look good? It doesn't get to look any better than that.
So Kareem rebounds, right? Feeds Worthy on the break, over to AC, to Magic, then back to Worthy, right?
I just thought it was going to be bigger.
I mean, do we have to take our clothes off?
Yep. The Bible makes it clear the Antichrist will hunt down and kill every Christian he can find.
I don't know the IRS a dang thing. This is a bill from my attorney. He says I owe him $1,200 for protesting a $700 tax bill.
Running around, chasing girls, doing drugs, and so that was the way it was, and that's what people expected. And that's what you looked for on the weekends.
If I said I went rock bottom, I actually went even worse because it became sort of bordering on suicidal. But I went into counseling.
Clarence Gilyard Jr., the man we all loved as the smooth-talking, crime-busting sidekick from Walker, Texas Ranger.
That's right. I'm a Texas Ranger. I don't have anything to worry about.
Had a life story that was way more than just action scenes and stunts. Underneath the Hollywood shine, Clarence was grappling with drama of his own that was nothing short of jaw-dropping. Clarence Gilyard Jr. wasn't just some fresh-faced kid with dreams. He had grit. Born on December 24th, 1955, in Moses Lake, Washington, Clarence was a full-on military brat.
I think it was an experience that I had when we were very young. My father was a serviceman, 21 years in the Air Force.
The family hoped he'd follow the same path. And at first, he went along, enrolling in the U.S. Air Force Academy. But that didn't last. After 1 year, he was over it, ditching those rigid expectations and diving straight into theater at Sterling College.
In my 20s, I changed my major to theater, and that really kind of launched me into trying to work in the business.
And let's be real, Clarence knew how to make an entrance. He grabbed everyone's attention by becoming the first black actor to play a cheerleader in Bleacher Bums, letting everyone know he was here to break molds. By the early 80s, Clarence's hustle was paying off. He landed in children's theater before scoring a role on Chips.
LAS 4, 7 Mary 4 is pulling over.
Just as the show was wrapping up. But the real game changer? 1986's Top Gun.
Hey, we could have had him, man.
I will fire when I am goddamn good and ready.
Where he played Sundown, the radar officer who held his own right next to Tom Cruise. Suddenly, Hollywood couldn't ignore him. Then he got cast as Theo, that smooth-talking tech villain in Die Hard, 1988.
Merry Christmas.
Clarence had officially arrived, catching eyes with his cool, memorable performances. And just when you thought he'd peaked, Clarence signed on to Walker, Texas Ranger, in 1993 as Jimmy Trevette, Chuck Norris's loyal partner.
Those women say leave him alone.
Did you hear that? Sounds like our boy here won't tell us what to do again.
So leave him alone.
Now, he wasn't just some actor. He was a full-fledged TV staple. With his mix of charm and talent, Clarence had earned his place in the industry. But here's the twist. Just when Walker, Texas Ranger, was launching Clarence into the stratosphere of fame, his personal life was going up in smoke. While Hollywood was showering him with cash and glory, behind the scenes, he was living a chaotic double life. Late-night parties? Check. Wild escapades? You bet. Drugs?
Running around, chasing girls, doing drugs, and so that was the way it was, and that's what people expected. And that's what you looked for on the weekends.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the affair that would ultimately lead to the downfall of his marriage.
When I was shooting Walker, Texas Ranger, I started to have an affair, and that precipitated a separation and then a divorce.
Leaving devastation in its wake.
I really hit bottom in 92, and so my wife asked for a divorce.
The kind of indulgences that would have anyone's head spinning, and Clarence was no exception. He felt like he was on a runaway train, watching everything unravel before his eyes. And it was messy. When things hit rock bottom, he knew he had to get help. But it wasn't just a single therapist he needed. He was juggling two, one in Texas and another in LA, flying back and forth like he was on a never-ending red-eye flight.
If I said I went rock bottom, I actually went even worse because it became sort of bordering on suicidal. But I went into counseling.
Talk about exhausting. That routine only seemed to drag him down further, and let's be real, he was barely keeping it together. Trying to balance his time with the kids and save his shaky marriage felt like a full-time job, and every trip to LA pulled him deeper into that Hollywood vortex that was just ripping him apart. Therapy, more like a spotlight on all his issues. Instead of clarity, it left him feeling more lost and confused. As Hollywood tugged him one way and family pulled him the other, Clarence was stuck in a whirlwind that wasn't the dream he signed up for. The fame, the fortune, sure, they were flashy, but at what cost? He was slowly waking up to the harsh reality that the good life was anything but, and the glitz of Hollywood was starting to feel like a prison. In 1992, while Clarence was knee-deep in his personal crisis, life threw him a wild curveball that flipped his script for good.
A man came up to me at a break, asked me if I wanted to go to church with him. I was raised Lutheran. My grandfather was a Baptist minister.
Now, let's rewind a sec. Clarence wasn't a complete newbie to faith. He wasn't exactly unfamiliar with the church game. Plus, he had an ex-wife who was Catholic, so he was well-versed in the whole holy ritual scene. But when he said yes to that church invite, he had no clue he was stepping into something monumental. So there he was, at a Catholic Mass, and boy, did something shift in him. That's where he met Father Bubba, with a story that could rival any Hollywood script. In that hallowed space, Clarence felt a sense of safety wash over him, something that had been MIA for a hot minute. As they chatted, he laid all his struggles on the table, the suffocating weight of fame, the chaos of his personal life, and the pressure that was literally driving him mad. He later dubbed this moment his first true confession, and trust me, it was a doozy.
Father Bubba was a former POW, a recovering alcoholic. So when I did come in to see him that week, dumping everything out about my life.
Father Bubba wasn't there to judge. He was all ears, letting Clarence spill his guts without holding back. The priest dropped some powerful wisdom that hit home. For the first time in ages, Clarence felt like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. It was like the clouds parted and a ray of hope broke through the chaos. That chance encounter? It was the beginning of a new chapter, a major turning point that kicked off his healing journey and reignited his faith. Even in his darkest moments, Clarence discovered that grace was still within reach, and that's a story worthy of a standing ovation.
He said, well, it's obvious that you're in a state of grace, which was something that I didn't understand. Definitely think that I was going to hear.
From that life-altering moment, Clarence did a complete 180 that flipped his entire narrative. In 1995, he dove headfirst into Catholicism.
Not very long after that, I signed up for the RCIA program.
This was no casual Sunday stroll for Clarence. He was on a divine mission.
My purpose is to get my kids and my wife to heaven. My kids have really, really good hearts and are pretty bright.
Talk about a glow-up. And speaking of glow-ups, romance was back on the menu when Clarence walked down the aisle again, this time with the stunning Elena.
Elena, my wife, and we got married, and then I took her to Rome for our honeymoon. We had our marriage blessed by John Paul II.
Now, that's what I call a celestial stamp of approval. This moment didn't just cement their love, it kicked Clarence's commitment to faith into high gear. When they returned from that heavenly getaway, they set up shop in Dallas, Texas, and let me tell you, that was a power move.
Decided not to live in California, but to live in Dallas, where I needed to stay strong and connect to a spiritual advisor.
In Dallas, Clarence found a spiritual advisor to help him navigate this new life, guiding him away from temptation and back toward peace. As the years rolled on, Clarence started stepping back from the glitz and glam of his acting career. He shifted gears, trading in his leading man status.
And then I started teaching production and direction and acting in the University of Texas system. As I say in my acting classes, life is messy, man.
Talk about a glow-up into mentorship. No longer just a star, he became a beacon of wisdom for young filmmakers and actors, sharing all the juicy lessons he'd learned. And don't sleep on how dedicated he was to every World Youth Day, fully diving into his faith and community.
I work every World Youth Day, for the Holy Father and for Holy Cross. And
Clarence wasn't just surviving, he was thriving, showing the world that redemption isn't just a possibility, it's a whole vibe. But the road wasn't all rosy. Even after his conversion, Clarence faced a tough uphill battle navigating Hollywood.
Can you talk a little bit about what your professional life in Hollywood looked like after your conversion? And
was hard.
His focus shifted entirely from the bright lights of acting to a simpler life dedicated to spirituality, teaching, and helping others. However, stepping away from the spotlight wasn't easy. The roles that once came pouring in were now few and far between, and Clarence found himself grappling with the harsh realities of a changing industry. The very Hollywood that once embraced him felt foreign as he tried to carve out a new identity outside of the dazzling scene. While he poured his heart into mentoring and education, the struggle to balance his faith-driven mission with the elusive nature of Hollywood's success weighed heavily on him. Sadly, Clarence passed away on November 28, 2022, at the age of 66, leaving behind a legacy.
The seventh lock, the electromagnetic seal. You do understand the circuits cannot be cut locally.
That was as complicated as it was captivating. The cause of his death was unspecified, but it was said he lost a long battle with illness, which adds a layer of sorrow to his story. At the time of his death, his net worth was reported to be around $5 million. Texas Ranger.
Look at that. What's that all about?
Where he blended grit with heart,